दूसरे वाला ले
इसको खाना
देखो 3 वाला दे दो 3 वाला
मम्मी ये सब दे बोलेगा जी साथ
Shall I start?
Please do.
Okay, good morning. This is Deepak Sood. I'm the Secretary General of ASSOCHAM. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I have with me President of ASSOCHAM, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. I have with me Senior Vice President of ASSOCHAM, Vineet Agarwalji. Thank you both of you for joining this morning. Thank you all members who have joined us this morning. Apologies for the bit of a delayed start. We had some technical glitch, but I'm sure all of you are in a position to hear us. There are tools by which you can send your messages. The administrator can manage all that. You are on mute right now, so any questions that you have have to be typed into the chat box and they will pick it up. This is the housekeeping announcements. Let me now start by saying thank you very much for joining us this morning. And I hope every one of you, your family members, your employees, your vendors, and everybody is safe, healthy, and sound, and taking all precautions that are required to be taken and that have been mandated by the government at the center and the states that you operate in. I would like to assure you that ASSOCHAM is working around the clock with almost all ministries at the central level, state governments, the chief ministers, the media, whether it is electronic or print, with the leadership of the president and the senior vice president, along with the chair, co-chair of all committees and subcommittees, the national committees that we have at the state and the national level, and are trying to put out all that is possible. I'm sure all of you have seen us in the newspapers, on the television, and ASSOCHAM is very proud to say that we have worked shoulder to shoulder with the government at this point in time and brought out almost all suggestions. I'm not going to touch the suggestions part of it because the president is going to address you in a short while. I think the number of the visibility of ASSOCHAM and the value of ASSOCHAM has substantially gone up in the eyes of the government and all ministries, and therefore they are reaching out to us at this point in time and asking us to give our suggestions on practically on everything. And you would have noticed that our success rate has been very, very high. Congratulations to the leadership. Thank you so much for guiding us through, sir. And with this, I would request Dr. Hiranandani to take over. Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon to all of you. I do hope and wish that all of you keep safe, keep your safe distances, see that we listen to what the government is saying in terms of operations. And I think it's a wonderful thing that our government, the Prime Minister, has been able to lock down early in the day in order to see that lives were saved. Something which I believe quick on behalf of the government has really done wonders to India, and we have been proud to say that we are among the leading countries in the world who have been able to keep the number of mortalities to the minimum as of now. as Secretary General just told you, we have been fairly active in representation to the government to bring to the notice of the government the issues that are there on the ground level, whether it has been issues which are relating to operational work of industry, of business, of commerce, or it is the question of the workmen who are suffering today, or it is the issues that we really need to do. All this has been. Number two, I'm proud to say, as Deepak Sood has correctly said, that the team at the operational level have done huge amount of work. Over and above that, I'm really grateful to Mr. Vineet Agarwal for having taken the lead in so many matters relating to the issues which are now on the forefront, and also to the committee members who have been fairly active in terms of representations that we have sent from various departments to various departments. And I think that is something which has really helped us in order to put our presence felt. In terms of the correctness of representation, I think it's not only about the representing of the that are on the ground, but also the fact that we are now in. Sorry about that. Rohit, you'll have the others on mute. Rohit?
Yes, sir.
You'll have to put the others on mute, otherwise
From the system. Rohit, all the administrators, put your phones away from the system.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So, what I wanted to say is, the representations that we have been able to give have been flagged off by various departments and now very fruitful. I think Deepak, the administrator put everybody on mute, otherwise this discussion will continue.
I will continue, sir. You continue, I will carry on.
Thank you.
All administrators, please put your system on mute. Can you ask everybody?
Audio not coming.
No, so you put everybody on mute and just open up your.
Hello, yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Thank you. Now, the issue is the issues that we have brought onto the table has not only drawn attention, but a lot of respect, because we have been able to clearly bring out to the government the real issues in each of the segments that we have done. We have had interactions with the Prime Minister, we have had interactions with the Finance Minister, we've had interactions with the Home Secretary, we have had interactions with several departments of the Government of India. We have also had interactions at the state levels, and this has also been extremely fruitful in terms of being able to put across the issues of business and industry, whether small, medium or big, and all this has been done on a continuing basis, almost 24/7. Now I'm going to bring about what are the principal issues that ASSOCHAM has been putting across to the government as to what we think are the flag off issues that we need to do. The first issue, which I believe is extremely important from an ASSOCHAM's perspective, which means the industry perspective, but actually the citizens of India perspective, is the fact that we need a stimulus package which is fairly large and strong. This, we believe, has been initiated by the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, but we do not believe it's adequate enough to solve the issues which are there present in the grassroots level. Most of the countries in the world, the United States, Great Britain, Singapore, all these countries, including Australia, have all moved together with financial packages which are close to or higher than 10% of the GDP of their countries. It is our belief in ASSOCHAM, after consulting all people in the financial sector, in the government sector and other sectors, that the government should come about with a financial package which should be at least 200 billion US dollars. This is, I think, necessary, because without that kind of financial package, the turnaround of the Indian industry will not happen. We do believe that this can take place in many ways, and it is available to the government in order to do so. Both the Reserve Bank of India and the Government of India is empowered to do so after invoking certain provisions of the law. The second most important thing that we have suggested is the demand side of the economy needs to be boosted up. There we have strongly suggested that the GST as charged today across the board needs to be reduced by 50%, at least for the period of 6 months. And this should be absorbed by deficit financing by the central government. It is necessary, imperative that this happens, because without that, it is not going to have any other kickstart which we think is important. The third important recommendation made by ASSOCHAM on your behalf is the one-time restructuring of all debt and loans by the Reserve Bank of India. And this was earlier done in 2008 October, when there was a Lehman crisis at the recommendation of the World Bank. This time, most of the countries in the world have already begun it and already implementing such a package. So we are requesting the Reserve Bank of India. We have directly requested them. We have also put these suggestions to the Finance Minister and also to the Prime Minister of India. Without this restructuring, we will be in great difficulty, because it is possible that most of the accounts of all business and all individuals who have taken loans will become NPA as of March of 2020. And hence it is necessary and imperative to do so. Once we do so, we will get a sabbatical period between now and September, in which time we hope that with the inputs of the government, we will be able to turn around this economy. So if we really need something, it is this. Let me tell you a short story. The NPAs which have been created have created a large amount of problems. And the whole thing has been working against ourselves. That is why the next suggestion we have made is that the NCLT provision needs to be suspended for a period of 6 months. The story goes as follows. There's a company which had taken loans from a foreign institutional investor. And at that time, the shares of his company were worth about 850 rupees in the stock market. Due to the fall in the stock market, the shares have fallen to less than 450. Because of that, the foreign institutional investor has foreclosed and wanted to sell in the market, so indirectly take over an Indian company. Now, luckily, the Mumbai High Court has stopped this action from being taken in view of the dire contingency which has happened. But if we do not have NCLT provisions suspended, hundreds and thousands of such companies will be foreclosed, and the only people who will be able to buy these companies will be foreigners who have deep pockets and large amount of capital. In India, we don't have that kind of capital. Hence, this is our third suggestion, very, very important, that the government needs to suspend NCLT operations at least for a period of 6 months in order to do so, whether directly by any individual and or by the banking system. I think this is extremely important. The next important thing that we have suggested to the government and to the Reserve Bank of India is to reduce the reverse repo rate. What has happened is too much credit is available with the banking system. It used to be 3 lakh crores. I presume that after the additional funds have been given to the banks, it will be more than 4 lakh crores of rupees with the banking system. However, this credit is not available to the people who need it, namely you, me, and the others. Now, if that is the case, the money, where is the money lying? This money is now lying in the reverse repo with the Reserve Bank itself, earning 4% interest, while they do not want to lend it to the marketplace. Hence, our request is there that the reverse repo needs to be dropped down to maybe 1% or lower in order to encourage banks to lend into the marketplace and discourage them from keeping it with the Reserve Bank of India. Similarly, we do believe that the RBI and the government should have only the RBI subscribe to government bonds and not lift the liquidity from the market. What is in fact happening, and there is a recent case of the Kerala government borrowing monies at very high rates of interest from the marketplace and taking away the liquidity from the market. All these bonds, both of the state government and the central government, should not be put into market placements because they take away the liquidity from the market and into the government hands. It is better that this monies should be subscribed by the RBI itself in order to maintain the liquidity in the marketplace. There are so many other suggestions that we have, but a couple of them I'm definitely going to share with you because it's an overriding requirement of many of the industries. Let's take the issue of the real estate industry, of which I belong. The reduction in the rates of flats cannot be reduced simply because of certain provisions in the Income Tax Act. So if your circle rate is X, you cannot sell at more than 10% lower than the circle rate. These kind of provisions actually are disparaging the market and makes it extremely difficult for us to run an economy where on one side we find sales is not happening and on the other side we cannot reduce the prices of the flats in order to make the sale. The other aspect of it, which we have brought to the notice of the Home Secretary of India and also the government in general, is the problems of industry and construction sites and also the transport sector. In many cases, labor is available on the sites. In the case of factories, many of them are staying in the factory compounds or adjacent to the factory compounds. In the case of construction site, the labor are staying on the construction site, and we are finding it difficult by keeping them in their homes to be able to actually do distancing, etc. All the construction industry and other people have been taking care of the food and other requirements of all this labor. And I must compliment all the members of ASSOCHAM who have gone out of the way in order to follow this hardship situation of the labor. And I'm really, really proud to say that we can look our heads high and say at a difficult time, we have been able to take care of the labor. But now on a partial removal of the lockdown, we request the government to consider that those people who are on the factory sites, those people who are on the construction site, and those people who are labor which are in the agricultural areas, or those who are truck and other operators should be allowed to go into and get these operations. On a reality, some of these permissions are already there, but local authorities in different places have not been following this mandate. And I think clarification to that extent needs to be obtained. On many parts of India, monsoon is approaching and many things and works are required to be done. For example, drains need to be cleared, final construction work where basements have been excavated. All these works need to be done and things need to be taken care. One of the principal pains which most of industry and business is following is the fact that they are unable to pay the installments of the banks, whether it is loan, whether they are EMIs or other parts of it. We have requested that at the first instance, there should be a complete rollover of these kind of things. And in the interim period, at least a sabbatical of 6 months should be given where we can postpone these payments to be done, and the amount of payment should be again dispersed over a period of 3 years because we can't have a one-time EMI after 6 months. So it needs to be turned over and rolled over a period of time. So I think this is extremely important that we need to do. One of the things brought to our notice has been that many of our companies and firms who are in ASSOCHAM have borrowed not from banks, but they have borrowed from NBFCs or HFIs. These NBFCs and HFIs are today short of money. And in fact, they are in as dire a situation as business. We think that with the excess of funds lying with the banking system, we need to completely bail out the NBFCs. Yes, RBI had already done a partial bail-off of these people and had set aside 25,000 crores of rupees for the bailout. But it is my belief that that may be inadequate, and we may need to bail out at least 150,000 crores of rupees in order to get NBFCs back on the foot. The other aspects of pump priming the economy is extremely important. I don't know if you know that the highways in America were not made because of cars. They were actually made because they needed to create employment during depression and in order to pump prime the economy. The beautiful autobahns of Germany also were not built for fast cars, though they are used by fast cars, but they were constructed because they needed to create employment for German people at the time of depression. And they were extremely important to pump prime the economy. It is our request at ASSOCHAM's level that whatever funds we are talking about, we don't want only that money to come to industry. We want this money to be used for the purposes of developing the infrastructure of India, whether it is roads, railways, ports, other dimensions of investment that we need to do. Now, obviously, hospitals too. And if this infrastructure is developed with the package that we have talked about of $200 billion US, I think this will pump prime the economy very, very fast. And it will be extremely useful, not only to industry and business, but the entire economy, which today shows 23% of our labor to be unemployed. I think I'm petrified to read that, because in my 40 years of business career, I've never ever heard of 23% unemployment. And when I saw it on my TV screen, I actually got a shudder down my spine. It is also important that we need to take care of the chain, the transport chain, the value chain, right from agriculture to medicines, to essential commodities, to transport relating to various products that need to reach to everybody's home. It is also important that production should continue, and the kind of turnaround which China has done in terms of areas even which were starting the coronavirus, I think we need to do in India. We need to be as resilient as them, so that once the turnaround takes place, we will be able to meet the market conditions and also be a substitute for China in many of the cases that we need to do. we need to study how the Chinese and other people have done. Let me give you an example. Textile industry has been going on a downward turn in terms of textile exports from China. However, India has not been able to take that business. It has gone to Vietnam, it's gone to Bangladesh, gone to Sri Lanka, and even Pakistan. We need to study all these issues as to why. Why is it that India, which had been the textile center, which produces cotton, produces synthetic material, and are still not able to produce textiles for the world? I think we need to have a serious relook at what the issues are, so that the advantage post-coronavirus is taken advantage of by our companies, by our SMEs, by our various industries and businesses that we have done. I'm proud to know today that Prime Minister gave permission, and President Trump had to request Prime Minister Modi for the purposes of releasing medicines to America. Can we not also expand every other segment that President Trump has to keep on requesting our Prime Minister to release every single product from India to the US, including our engineers and other people who have been denied the H-1B visas? So I think all this is aspect we need to run back and see that it is done. All these problems have been represented on your behalf and by various committees have been representing to government, and we have been very clear that we are ahead of the curve. Other people have talked about what we have said after we have represented those issues, and in fact, in some cases, have really understood it from us at what the issues are. So I can proudly say that today, ASSOCHAM has taken a leadership role. Thanks to the team, thanks Deepak Sood, thank you Vineet Agarwal. All these people have played, and the whole team has played a very, very important role. Let me give you one or two stories. We talked about subsidies that are required to be done. I just got a copy of the subsidies given on wages by the Bangladesh government to textile workers who are working in the factories which are owned by Indian entrepreneurs in Bangladesh. That's the kind of subsidy which is being given by the government. What we are also asking is that the provident fund amounts which are collected and to be paid, we would like that the companies, in order to save liquidity, could retain these funds for a period of 6 to 12 months. Another important factor which I need to bring to your notice is the fact that government itself has become a bad paymaster. In our case of Maharashtra, the salary of the officers and staff of Maharashtra government are also being paid by 2 installments. Government agencies, Income Tax Department, GST, National Highway Authority of India and others have also not made payments to various people. But businesses are expected to pay everybody. I don't think that will be possible unless help is given by the government. But the total amounts which we have guesstimated, which are due from government and government agencies, amounts to more than 1,90,000 crores. Even if this money is put back into the economy, it will make a world of a difference. And this is extremely important to do. We have taken up dozens of other matters relating specifically with different types of industry. We have also brought about the issue of how stress funds can come into the picture now to bail out industry in this dire period. And that is possible to do not only in the real estate, but other industry and businesses that we need to take up. We have been given suggestions of how export industry, which is so badly hit, can be helped. We have been considering the restoration of additional 2% NEIS, extension of subvention schemes, extending zero interest loan equivalent to government dues, etc., pending in the books of various accounts. This has been suggested on behalf of our association for export group. We have got other suggestions which have come up from the transport and travel position, where manufacturing and exports have been very, very badly hit. And we need to take something very quickly into this field. We have also got from capital services market, capital market thing about how foreign portfolio investments can actually be taken care of. We are also got given suggestions in terms of ARCs, how ARCs can actually intervene and manage this with a smaller amount of monies, and this should be encouraged today by the government. We are also being suggested by various other committees about how we can temporarily take care of the payroll of the employees by using the tax monies just now and paying that amount maybe after 6 to 12 months. We have also talked about how special applications can be done and given to workers who are dealing with agro and other essential commodity industries. So every sector of the economy, ASSOCHAM has taken up a great leadership role. We are trying to see that the principal issues should be addressed by ASSOCHAM. You and I will work together with the government to save the lives of the people, to make the pain less for the poorer and the poorest. And that is extremely important for us to do, to take care of the health of the people, to save lives. But if we don't take care of the economics of this, even saving lives will ultimately mean poverty to the rest of the nation. And hence we feel that the economic interest of the nation, which we are duty bound to bring to the notice of the government, needs to be flagged off. I was specially concerned about all these issues. We are working very, very, very hard on these subjects. I promise you, we have left no stone unturned in order to make these representations, and strongly to the government. We have gone to the media and taken their support. We have expressed all these issues on your behalf. We wanted to assure you and promise you that we will leave no stone unturned on your behalf and on behalf of the members of ASSOCHAM, that we will do our ultimate best in order to bring back industry and commerce and business and SMEs and others back to life very quickly. We know the roadmap. We have pointed out the roadmap. We promise you that the suggestions made are workable. We do believe that we will succeed. The Prime Minister in his leadership is an extraordinary man, a man of great guts, a man of great eminence, a grand man of not national leadership, but international acclaim. I am confident today that we will, with his leadership and guidance, be able to make the paradigm happen, which no other country will be able to do. We will face and manage the coronavirus problem. We will manage the economic problem. It is our duty in ASSOCHAM to assist the government, to guide and bring about to the notice of our members and committees to represent correctly, reasonably, rightly, but strongly that we need to make this change happen. I have a large number of questions which have come to me. I have answered some of them. I will still leave it open to questions to be put in over the thing. If I've not covered some of them, we will be very happy to answer. And I look forward to more and more interaction. Your proactiveness in giving us guidance, in coming to us and pointing out what we should represent, have been extremely useful to each and every one of us. My sympathy and empathy to each and every one of you who in business and trade are suffering. That's the mildest word that I can use, are suffering today. all my sympathies and empathies, but I will not just give lip sympathy. We are working very hard to see that you do get as much relief as we are doing for the workers of this country. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. It's a great deal of confidence given to us and gives us the strength to continue to represent you in a very, very proactive but positive way. Thank you once again.
Thank you, President. We've had a lot of questions. We are about 200, 220 plus people online right now. There were questions that came in yesterday. We tried to synthesize those, and I think, President, you have covered quite a lot of them. But I think there are very specific ones which I think we will try and answer them to you separately. But before that, I would request Vineet ji to raise his questions and his comments. And in the meantime, President, I would request you to look at your WhatsApp. I've sent you about 20 more questions, so you may. You may want to just consider those. And Vineet ji, your questions were there of yesterday, plus your personal comments. I will also request you to talk about the various interactions that we have done with the minister. Obviously, not making the specific mentions about the ministers, but the general that we discussed. Over to you. Just a minute. Rohit, can you unmute Vineet ji, please?
Vinisa, you have to do it yourself. It's unmute from my side.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the great highlights of what you have said today are extremely useful for us to give us a direction in terms of how not just the industry is thinking about, but how we need to position ourselves as a country going forward. Certainly and I do hope everyone on this group today, on this webinar, is home, safe, and healthy and happy. In the last few weeks, we've had a lot of interaction with several ministers, several people, and we've been trying to highlight a lot of issues related to areas like logistics, like supply chain matters, of course, the finance and the and how do things look in a post-COVID world? I think those are the thoughts that have started to come about. We know that today things are in an extremely difficult circumstance. We are seeing that there is the supply chains are extremely constricted. We don't have enough truckers on the road. We don't have enough labor at various factories, because if they are not available, there's no loading or no new production that is happening. So we are feeling this crunch, and I think this crunch is going to get a little bit more stronger and tighter in the next few days, even with the lockdown opening up, because Indian supply chains have become longer and more complex in the last few years. I would brace for more such issues. I would brace for be ready for sacrifices that we've been talking about as a country overall. From an industry perspective, the perspectives have been shared with ministers, and one of the few basic things that we've shared are things like how can we ensure that labor works at the specific location. So one of the suggestions that were made was that we incentivize labor at the place of work. What is typically happening is that labor is not going back to wherever they are supposed to, because not only are they've been told that they will get the money, but they're also getting free food in many places. So many of them are not eager to come back. And so we've asked the ministers, we've asked the government to think about a system where labor gets paid at the place of work, it gets an incentive at the place of work. Subsequently, we've also asked how private banks are not reacting to how the RBI's directives. State banks have started to do certain activities, including extension of limits, but private banks are not reacting yet completely, and that's also something that we want that they should also start looking at. Clearly, as companies in a post-COVID world would go back, the compliance norms will change. The way that we are going to sanitize ourselves, the way that we are going to keep social distancing will change, which means that we need to now create certain norms and standards for this sanitization. Because I'm seeing WhatsApp reports where people are using all kinds of chemicals which could be harmful to people for sanitization. So at some point, these are certain norms that need to come up. I'm giving very micro stuff, but I think these are things that go beyond that what our president has just said on the macro stuff. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and we'll be very happy to listen to you in terms of any specific questions you have that have not been addressed so far, so that we can take this discussion forward. Thank you.
Do you like me to continue with the questions? Paras Jain has asked a question. Can we ask the government to extend zero interest bank loan for the amount of various government dues stuck up in the books? We have asked for all this to be subsidized for a period of 6 months. Postponement of all these payments is what we have asked. However, this is for various departments of the government, and it's not one. So it's going to be IT, it's going to be GST, it's going to be various other departments, including Provident Fund and others. In all the segments, we have asked them as to what are the issues that really will come up. But we haven't really got, once we get the total, what the finance minister is likely to announce by 15th or 16th, we will like to see, and we hope that the issues that we have covered will be covered to this. Second, Pramod Kumar Jain has asked the question of logistics. I think Mr. Vinit Jain has already mentioned about it, and also mentioned earlier that the magistrates at the local level are creating a problem. We have taken up this issue at the Home Secretary's level as to this problematic and how this should be solved. And we are hopeful that we will be able to manage to get all these things happening. Hitendra Mehta has talked about the extension of SEZs, which were expiring on 31st March 2020, and also the issue of the sunset clause, which should be extended by 3 years. We have represented this to the Honorable Minister for Commerce. We haven't yet got any consent in terms of extension of time, which has been done by him. There are other questions relating to what is going to happen when the international orders are cancelled by the foreign companies because of the problems in their countries, and what are the issues relating to that. We have represented to the Reserve Bank of India, also to the Finance Ministry, to see to it that these companies, which are otherwise very good companies, very strong companies, very positive net worth and profitable companies, will actually show zero profits in the last 30 days and probably in the next 3 to 6 months. And I think some sort of respite is needed to be given to them, and also further credit for running their companies at this point of time would become extremely important. There are other suggestions that we have made as to the question of NPAs that are coming into the market. Our answer to that has been very clear. From now onwards, for 6 months, there should be no new NPAs to be declared. So that's our suggestion to the government. We hope that they will accept that situation. Mr. Kun Shah of Renewable Energy Committee talks about some burden of salary bills on the line of what I mentioned in the case of Bangladesh. But government has really not looked at that. In fact, they've asked us to pay the salaries, but there is no relief yet announced by the government in order to help us to take care of that funding requirement that we are talking about. There's also a question of capital expenditure for renewable energy projects. We have talked about investments of capital investments and debt in all projects, not only for renewable energy, but we have talked about all of it. The government should release pending subsidy. This is horrendous. On one side, we and business are required to pay everybody, whether it is SMEs or others, but government itself is not making payment. And I think this is a very cussed statement that government doesn't pay and business is expected to pay when they have the ability to pay and they are not making the payment. There's a suggestion from Surajit Sen of Organic Agro saying that special passes should be given online application to workers on agriculture side, similar to what is done in industry. Yes, we have suggested everything should be e-enabled, and but I don't know how, to what extent workers would be able to download such passes and other things. But we have talked about, in fact, the discussion which is now taking place is dividing the country into red, yellow and green zones, and hopefully agricultural side will be all green zones and permissions will be given for the purposes of continuing activity in these zones. And also in the case of factories, most of them where you will take reasonable care, as has been suggested by government and also by ASSOCHAM, we will be able to do it. Mr. Sandeep Mukherjee of Amway has suggested single window clearance from both state and central government. The policy relating to the Prime Minister has made it very clear that all suggestions relating to ease of doing business should be put. I think we have already put this suggestion earlier, but we will now do it again because I think it's an important suggestion. Mr. Kanoria from JS Group is talking about the obligation again to pay salary and wages when the banks are not giving the funds for the purposes of doing it. So we will represent that this should happen. Mr. Anuj Agarwal of Bharti Handicraft says, interest waiver to the farmer during drought situation. This is a drought situation for business. I agree completely. And we haven't put it in that way, but we have asked for similar reliefs. But possibly the analogy of the farmers issue should also be due, especially in the case of SMEs, because we are a huge employer in the marketplace. Then Mr. Anil Khaitan for startups and other committees, he talks about how to revive the SMEs, MSMEs. My view is that we are now not only talking about SMEs and MSMEs, we are talking about entire gamut of business and industry, and we have specially focused on SMEs and MSMEs in order to support this industry. In fact, every letter addressed to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister and other departments talk about the medium, small, and these sectors as important. Again, Mr. Mukesh Sinha talks about pending payments of government to the SMEs. It is surprising that I thought there was a website created for non-payments of these SMEs from government agencies. We will check it out and give it back to you. That if that website is operational, we will put up all the payments which are remaining, and we will request Mr. Deepak Sood to assist you in order to put your balance payments on the website so that those payments can be made by those companies, government companies. On the Healthcare Council, there's a question that most of the hospitals have been closed for all other patients and they are not able to sustain the operation. Number two, to indigenize medical equipment, reduce custom duty, and the safety and sensitivity of workers. Dr. Kalhan, it's extremely important to talk about all these factors, but reducing custom duty is contradictory to internal manufacturing. So what can be done is for the urgent goods, we could reduce custom duty, And for other goods which we will manufacture, it could possibly be increased, is what we could possibly suggest after considering with the council. We need to have a corporate healthcare plan for scenario post-COVID. I think this is such an important thing. Health of the people, health of the staff, health of the workers. I think all this needs to be addressed. What the Prime Minister has addressed is taking care of the health workers in terms of giving insurance in the case of death of these workers, where he has committed 50 lakhs per person. But I think it's extremely important because this coronavirus issue is not going to die away very quickly. The only thing is that the mortality in the short run is sought to be mitigated so that the healthcare can take care of the matter. There is also a question which is brought about by Padma Shri Dr. Rana from the Wellness Council, and he talks about the shortage of masks, equipment and ventilators. My view is that the government is working very hard. I just saw on TV a few minutes ago, even the railway coach manufacturing organization is making ventilators. I'm sure with all the departments of the government and private sector, we will very soon be able to meet the requirements of ventilators, provided the curve comes down. If the curve moves up very fast, then it will be extremely difficult to do so. And hence it is necessary to cooperate with the government on these issues. I'll take two more questions and then pass it on to the Secretary General. Mr. Manoj Gupta, Chairman of Road Council, talks about the unaffected areas. Yes, Home Secretary has already mentioned to us that unaffected areas of the country, I don't know where is Bernal, but many of these areas will be green areas and hence will be improved. Infrastructure activities like load construction. Yes, they are considering these activities to be started. In fact, I had a talk yesterday with the government in Maharashtra. There are 25,000 workers on the Mumbai-Nagpur road, and they are all sitting there idle. There is no possibility of anything, and they are taking care of those workers. I'm sure the work could be started. Offices and factories to install thermal images and testing. Yes, this is imperative. We should also take care about it. Education, Shri Diven Narayan of Shobhit University. Will you advise Chamber in giving government for support of education institution to come out of the uncertainty, and also made decline in terms of fresh graduates passing on in 2020? Oh, this is horrible. The unemployment part of it is a worrisome. We'll certainly work to push the market again to come back. Supporting of education is extremely important. And I think most of us, I'm also a part of an education system which has 45,000 students. And we are now working to create more online education to be given to them. And various factors are being taken into consideration to improve online education. I have several other questions, but I think time is short. And I'm very glad that you have raised this flag. So it is actually reinforcing ASSOCHAM to fight harder, because there is such a commonality of views in terms of it. People wonder why ASSOCHAM has become so active, such hyperactiveness in terms of working for the industry and also with the government. But I'm very happy that we are doing so. We are really working very hard for you. Thank you, Deepak Sood. Thank you, Vineet Agarwal. Thank you, the entire team at ASSOCHAM, all the council members and other members who have been supportive. Thank you very, very much for all this support. In spite of being locked up at home, so many of you are working towards helping us in order to take it. And there are lots of other agencies whom we have taken support from in order to make ASSOCHAM suitable to be proud of itself, to say, yes, in this situation, we have been an important part of the business and industry of this country and part of Hindustan. I think we are very proud of each and every one of you. Thank you very much again, and keep healthy, keep happy, look after your parents, your elders, your children, and see to it that we follow the advice in order to see that we come out of it with flying colors. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, President. I think there are still too many questions, and it's not difficult to keep pace with what is coming in and what I pass on, because now. So what we would do is
we can have a session maybe after a week or 10 days in order to take more of these questions, because I have at least very, very happy to see that 80 to 90% of the questions we have already taken up with government.
Yes.
And you must have seen the last consolidated list of representations which have been made, have been sent by the Secretary General to you by mail yesterday.
Yeah, we said it about almost midnight. Yes, that was
midnight yesterday. So it will be there in your inbox. So you will be able to see the multiple activities done in the last 30 to 45 days in terms of the coronavirus issues. And you'll be very, very proud to see that your association has actually taken a leading position in terms of intervention with the government on the issue of industry and business and the economic issues in a very, very positive way. Thank you very much again.
Viniji, there was one question which was on logistics. Somebody's lithium-ion batteries are at the port, and they were looking at some guidance. So maybe I would just urge you to speak for a minute on that, as to not only this specific consignment, but if there are consignments stuck at the port, what are your suggestions for people?
So if there is any consignment that's stuck on at the ports, there is only if it is coming under the essential products, they will be cleared. Rest of the products will not get cleared. This is very clear instructions. And if those products are connected to something that is being made for an essential product, let's say if it's going into a hospital or something specific, only then will they be cleared. We have requested the minister to fast track certain types of cargo, but you have to understand that the priority right now is essential services, medical equipment, and so on. As and when things start opening up, you will see that that more movement will happen. We are certainly seeing that some decongestion at ports have also started already.
Great. So the next steps, I would say, is, as the President has said, that we will collect more and more questions. I think the most important thing that now comes is not about this lockdown period, but it is the post-lockdown period and how calibratedly we can open the industry, which would get opened first. So my request to all members to share with us your thoughts. Don't not large ones, please make them bullet points. We are all constrained in terms of infrastructure, so smaller points. Send it to us, your suggestions. What do you think should we need to represent to the government? They want us to come out with a report in the next 48 hours as to what needs to be the structured exit strategy, plus what should be done for the industry, which industry needs to be opened and which can be opened a little later. What are the precautions and what are the protocols that we should lay down as industry for industry to follow and the government to oversee, so that we do not lose the benefit of this lockdown, but we come out stronger from this. Second point that I wanted to highlight is what President also said, and a question also came about, that hospitals are taking care of COVID right now. There isn't too much that is happening in terms of general healthcare, whether it is dialysis. There are so many patients who need blood. My request to each one of you, please go out and donate. There's no stoppage for you. It is absolutely safe. I've done it myself, and I'm telling this to you once again. There are so many patients who need blood. Blood banks are running empty. Encourage people. We need to help our people if they are our own, especially the people who are just living with the transfusion, and they're the ones who need it right now. So I would urge each one of you to please consider that as a very, very important step forward as a social service for your company. Take care of your employees, feed them, take care of their locations. It is going to be the next most important raw material that you will have. If you don't have people, our exit is not going to be smooth, and we need to take care of that. Viniji, is there anything else that you would like to add to this?
Thank you.
President?
No, thank you.
So with this, I think I would call this as the end of the webinar. Please, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Your suggestions are welcome, more welcome. We are available to you. Send us WhatsApp, send us emails. Unfortunately, there's so many VCs that are happening with the government that we are not able to connect with you personally. But wherever it is required, reach out to us and we are here to help. I'm happy to listen to the person whose payments are not fixed up. So please reach out to me. I'll try and see what best can be done with your payments from the public sector. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.